Hi, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Yellow Ropes Forever, the NXT Rundown. See, I'm still using both names just to, I don't know, transition still. But I am joined today by Stewart Brookes of the New Generation Project podcast. So hello, sir.
Hey, how you doing?
I'm doing pretty well. It's exciting to have you on the show.
Thank you very much. Yeah, it's going to be good to get a chance to talk about some current wrestling for once.
Yes, you're not. I mean, you guys are getting into the parts of wrestling that are fun again, at least. You're out of 1995.
Oh yes, yeah, we finished 1996 now as well, and we're in the new year. We're ploughing into 1997, but every now and again, it'd be nice to come out of the weird 90s. I'll get rid of my curtains, haircut, and everything. Join the modern world.
But yeah, it's fun to have you on the show. I'm curious because we've never actually spoken before today.
No.
So how much NXT have you watched? When did you start watching it?
In its current incarnation, back. I mean, I was watching it obviously when it first debuted back in 2010 and being really excited that Bryan Danielson was finally on WWE television, and then being very disappointed that they were making him participate in like barrel carrying contests.
Yeah.
So, and then I saw a bit of season 2, a bit of season 3, purely from the feedback it was getting of the bizarre content. And you know, you had that week where CM Punk was providing the really bizarre commentary and that kind of stuff. And then I didn't watch it for a while, but I was aware of what was going on. You know, you had Yoshi Tatsu and Tyson Kidd feuding over action figures and stuff like that.
Yep. Those were good times.
Yeah. And then when it kind of rebooted in 2012 and they built to the tournament with Seth Rollins and Jinder Mahal, that's when I kind of started watching it again. I mean, it was on Sky Sports 3 over here while it was off air in the States.
Oh, right. You guys actually had it on TV.
Yeah, so we could still get it. So actually the only time it's not been on regular UK television over here is since the launch of the network. As soon as the network launched, they took it off TV over here. Yeah, kind of been with it since the reboot on a regular basis, I would say. And it's for Adam and I, my co-host on the podcast I do, it's our sort of Saturday morning or Sunday morning television. That is what we get up and watch together when there's, you know, before you go about your day. And it's 45 minutes, it's 50 minutes, it's a great hour just to sort of breeze through a lot of the time.
And it's good.
There is that as well.
You know, which is positive. I mean, there were a few weeks / a month during the tag team tournament where I was beginning to question my love for NXT. And it was a very dark time for me, but we're out of that, and it's very exciting. Yeah, a lot of people liked that tournament. It was not my thing.
No, I didn't mind it. It was something different. It was a bit of a different focus. But I think that's what's quite good about the show in general, is that the personalities that they focus on it is constantly evolving.
Right.
And okay, so over the last year they've had a real great focus on the women's division, and I kind of feel like the tag division is their new project.
Mm-hmm.
Like that's what they want to rebuild. Because I mean, yes, I'm sure you'll remember the dark days of the Ascension defending against everybody.
I remember, yeah. It's nice that you're an old school NXT fan, and I say old school like pre-network days.
Yeah.
Because a lot of people, you know, kind of jumped on around Arrival or around the first takeover especially. And so when I mention things like the BFFs and Summer Rae actually being compelling and you know, like those sorts of things, most people are like, no, you're a liar.
No,
no, she was great. She was like the best heel in WWE at the time.
Yeah, but that was the great thing even about the women in those days that has kind of carried over into what they present now. There was some really well-defined characters on those early shows, and it was really simple, and people didn't flip-flop heel face every week. And okay, you had your Alicia Foxes and people like that kind of turning up, but for the most part they were focusing on those group of girls down there, and it was well set up and well defined, and the feuds made sense.
It's exciting to know that, you know, I have another fellow NXT historian with me on the show.
Thank you.
So I think we will get into the show in just a moment. We will take a brief musical interlude and be back after this.
We go hard, all day, all night. On my proud son of people who be ready to fight. Say yeah, 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 yeah. We ain't ashamed that we came from the park. And if you're looking for trouble, our bite is worse than a bark. Cause we done proud southern boys till the day we dead. We got fists made of fire and a neck all red. We keep it dirty, keep it gritty. Don't need your sick, don't need your city. Keep it dirty, keep it gritty.
And we're back. We opened the show with footage of Apollo Crews and Finn Bálor having their title match. Well, Apollo winning the Battle Royal, then their title match, then Baron Corbin coming in to ruin our lives, and Samoa Joe turning on Finn Bálor, potentially gonna, save them from Baron Corbin. But no. Joe's finally turned heel, and Sondra's finally really glad about that. Um, yeah, really, really glad. Joe needed something to be doing. This kind of bugged me, and this is a nitpicky thing, but if you listen to my show before, you know how I am about commentary. I haven't really been harping on them that much lately, but they've been doing this more and more. The announcers, well, Rich Brennan says, I'm Rich Brennan. I'm here with Raw's Byron Saxton and the WWE Network's Corey Graves. Can't they just be from NXT, which is actually where they're from?
I guess they kind of want to make them sound more important. It's sort of a Troy McClure thing, isn't it? It's like, you may remember me from Corey Graves' Culture Shock, which I don't think anyone's ever watched.
But yeah, I don't know. It kind of sticks in my craw because I'm like, no, you're from NXT. NXT is prestigious. You're building NXT as this thing. I don't know. I know that they're trying to make them sound more important, but if they're gonna do that, shouldn't Rich Brennan be like, I'm SmackDown's Rich Brennan? Does he
What
think that makes him sound too vain? I don't
it,
know.
it thinks it refers to a show again that nobody watches.
Well, NXT is more prestigious than SmackDown, so I suppose there's that.
Hmm.
But after that, we have Ty Dillinger coming out. Now, I am in love with Ty Dillinger 100%, totally, completely. I have been for a very long time, since before this Perfect 10 gimmick. I've really, really loved Ty Dillinger. I was into his tag team with Jason Jordan, even though that was the most boring thing, right?
Yes, yeah. They were kind of nondescript, and when they split up, I think it's done wonders for both of them actually.
Oh, I think so too. I mean, when they split up, nobody cared. It was like, okay, this has the least heat to it ever because no one cared about your team, and now no one cares that you're split up, and the match was not good. And Jason Jordan hadn't really figured it out at that point. It took the magic of Chad Gable for Jason Jordan to kind of come into his own finally after we've been seeing him since FCW.
Yeah.
But, and I'm so glad because now I completely love Jason and Jordan. Jason and Jordan? No, Jason Jordan and Chad Gable. But Ty Dillinger versus Baron Corbin. Now, the first thing I thought when I saw Baron Corbin come out was Vroom Vroom Motorcycle Wolf. That one's for you, Ellen Probin. But Ty Dillinger versus Baron Corbin have not had a squash match once. They've had it twice before. Two times before. And I was like, really? We're doing this again? I mean, I know Ty Dillinger has a gimmick now, and it might be a little bit longer of a match because Baron Corbin's not just like, whoop, end of days, that's my entire match because that's all I do. He's moved beyond that, and I appreciate that. And I've actually been praising certain aspects of Baron Corbin, even though he's still the most boring wrestler on the planet. Um, but I wasn't very excited about this. Thankfully, we didn't actually get a match. Apollo Crews came out to attack Baron Corbin right off the bat, and at first I was like, where did Ty Dillinger go? Did he teleport? Did he gain teleportation powers from Steve Cutler? Because that's totally a thing in my head. Um,
He just went
because
home.
he just went home, but you do see him walking out of the ring slightly. He's like in the corner of the screen, so he did not learn how to teleport from Steve Cutler. That's still Steve Cutler's deal. Yeah. I liked seeing a fire from Apollo Crews here. Like, my first initial reaction was, okay, Apollo Crews is coming out to attack Baron Corbin. Baby faces, am I right? Like, WWE baby faces are the worst people in the world. But it does make sense, especially given that they showed us the video package of Baron Corbin ruining Apollo's title shot. So I'm
Yeah.
willing to go with it in this case. And it's finally a story from Apollo Crews. He's finally in a story. He's not just happy to be here. We'll hear from him again a little bit more later. But after that, we get into Bayley. And first we see Bayley, and let's just focus on the glory of Bayley for a moment. But she's with the Hype Bros versus Blake Murphy and Alexa Bliss. Now, what did you think of this pairing, A, and then of the match, B, before I tell you what I think?
The pairing makes total sense, I thought. Her character would totally pick those two characters to be her partners. Just from a sort of kayfabe perspective, that she's supposed to be happily and bubbly and smiley, and she would sort of pick the male equivalent of that. The match itself, I thought, was pretty good fun. It was nothing outstanding, but like in our house, we're not big Mojo Rawley fans, to say the least, but this was about the least offensive of him we've seen. And sort of, I was watching it this morning as Adam came down. He sort of saw, oh, Mojo Rawley's in the ring. Oh, actually, his hot tag's quite good this week. Okay, fair enough. So yeah, I thought the spot with Bayley's super Bayley to bellying, was it Murphy or Blake? I
Yeah, it was
can't
Buddy
remember.
Murphy.
Buddy Murphy. I do wonder if that is a bit of a sort of Mark Merrow being powerbombed by Sable moment for him. Like, will the audience take him seriously again after that? But yeah, I like the match.
I think with Bailey they will. No, that's funny because that's exactly my mental track. Like I hate Mojo Rawley. I cannot abide Mojo Rawley. When Bob and I started the show, Mojo Rawley, told me, was his least favorite person on NXT. Like Mojo Rawley was worse than Sylvester LaForte, right?
Wow.
So, yeah. And I agree. Like they pushed him for a while and it was super annoying. And then he came back and started doing MC Hammer dances. And I just don't know. Like props to him for trying things. I think putting him with Zack Ryder made perfect sense. I don't ever really want to see them.
Hmm.
However, I agree that this made perfect sense as a pairing. I think I said that last week because of Bayley's character. Bayley at her core is still a huge wrestling fan and she's still really happy to be here, even
Yeah.
though she belongs now, right? And so one of the cool things is that she found partners and didn't have to wait to be rescued. She was doing the rescuing here.
Hmm.
And I love that because how often in Bayley's past, and I'm really glad that you've seen this, like how often in Bayley's past was she just wanting to hug everybody and they were all like, no, go away. Like everyone was mean to Bayley, right?
Yeah, and that was her whole deal, was that she was the overexcited, overenthusiastic wrestling nerd that the other girls mostly were a little bit like, can you just take a step back and keep away from me for a bit, please?
Right, like
Uh,
even the baby faces didn't want to team with her. Paige was mean to Bayley. Emma was mean to Bayley. Like Natalia had to come down to team with Bayley at one
yeah, I
point.
thought that's what I was going to say. I think Natalia was the first one who actually like picked her for anything, and I think she was super excited about that at the time.
Well, I think Charlotte was the first.
I was Charlotte before that.
Yeah, because I think she teamed with Natalia against Charlotte and Sasha, I believe.
Yes, yeah, yeah.
But yeah, I mean, everyone was mean to Bayley. No one wanted to team with her, but Bayley went out and didn't have trouble finding partners, and she was the main focus of this match, which was just really cool for me to see. And the crowd, I think the crowd helped this match too, because the crowd was so into it.
Oh, absolutely. I think like they Bailey's overness sort of rubbed off onto Mojo Rawley, so much so that he's doing his whole he ain't hyped, and the crowd are yelling it back at him. And I've never seen that his entire tenure. They've never been that enthusiastic about him. But I think just the fact that he was on her team meant the crowd
Yeah,
were 110% behind him, and yeah, even on board with his catchphrases and stuff.
right. I mean, I think Full Sail's always been a little more behind Mojo Rawley than the world has been behind Mojo Rawley because he's from there.
Right.
And like, I don't know if you remember at Arrival, his entire family section sitting there wearing
Yeah, there
like
were.
Stay Hype shirts.
Yes, yeah, I remember the Mojo section. Yeah.
So that'll tend to happen. But no, they were super into this. And then, kind of copying who is it? Is it Two Life Crew
It's
that did the
it's
hey, we want some pussy thing?
yeah, and then New Day were doing it a few weeks ago, weren't they? They sort of
Right.
appropriated
So maybe
that.
they think they're copying it from the New Day, that, hey, we want some Bayley. And even Mojo dancing to that didn't
Yeah.
annoy me nearly as
No.
much as it should have.
There was also a brief sort of pickup of "Hey, we hate Alexa," but that didn't really take, and they kind of went back to the Bailey one.
Yeah, well, the Bayley one rhymed a lot better
Yeah, yeah.
and it was more fun. And we like Bayley more than we hate Alexa, frankly.
I'm
So,
I'm kind of a little bit in love with Alexa Bliss, if I'm honest.
oh, me too. I have been since she was sneezing glitter all over us.
Yes, yes.
I was very upset when they took away her Bling Bling song.
And how glitter, glitz, sparkle, bliss, whatever that little sort of twinkle thing at the start of it was.
Uh-huh.
It's a
Yep.
shame that's gone. I,
I
I read
know.
I read somewhere the other day that described her as she's like the high school prom queen that has gone off to college and become a bitch, which I'm not really familiar with that analogy, but I kind of understand what they're saying.
I can definitely see that. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense, actually. I mean, she did get rid of the cheerleader tutu thing that she
Yeah.
was doing, and she's gone on to be evil. And something I really liked about this too was as Alexa and Blake and Murphy were entering, doing their entrance that I can't actually watch on my television because it makes me dizzy.
Yeah, it's really nauseating and Yeah, it's not a thing I like. Another thing I wish they do for these guys, as well as Dawson and Dash, which we'll talk about later, but team names. Get some team names like Dubstep
Like the
Cowboys.
mechanics,
Yeah, and Dubstep Cowboys. I don't
the
really like
Dubstep
it.
Cowboys. Thank you.
I don't really like it as a name, but give them a name. Like they're a
But it
tag
was a
team. Give them a name.
thing.
Yeah,
I mean, James Storm coming into NXT, honestly, one of my first reactions, and this is like my shoot first reaction, right?
right.
I don't think we're ever going to see Wesley Blake real life cowboy again.
He's had that gimmick appropriated.
Oh, I know. And yes, I realize James Storm has been a cowboy for a long time, and no, I'm not that familiar with his work, and yes, I'm way more attached to Wesley Blake, and I realize that's not normal, but it was a sad moment for me anyway. But I liked Blake and Murphy as they're, getting onto the apron going, next women's champ. And I didn't even notice commentary the first time I watched it. I noticed it again today as I was kind of taking notes. Byron Saxton says something about how, are Blake and Murphy taking a back seat to Alexa? And Corey Graves is like, no, Byron Saxton. They're just supporting the third member of their team,
Yeah,
which was
yeah.
something I really loved about the dynamic because for so long, when Alexa joined them, they were competent as a tag team on their own. They won the titles from the Lucha Dragons on their own. Also, Sin Cara's terrible, but whatever. They
There is
won it
that.
on their own. They could do that, but Alexa really added to their team. And she was supporting them and saying, these are my boys, they're the champions, and I'm going to make sure they stay the champions. And then they didn't stay the champions. But she's as much a part of the team as Wesley Blake or Buddy Murphy. And yes, I am very, very insistent on continuing to use their full names because that's the way I am. Um,
Didn't they mention one of their first names this week as well? Which for the
I think
first
they
time in,
did.
I think they called him Wesley, and
Yeah.
that's like the first time in ages I've heard either one of them have a first name again.
They said Scott Dawson and Dash Wilder too.
Maybe they'll find Neville's first name somewhere.
I may or may not have painted Adrian onto my Neville shirt, but I don't know. I really like that Alexa and Blake and Murphy are a team. They are a very definitive team. And one of the cool things, I mean, the match was fun. The match was really fun. I was into it when Zack Ryder was in the ring. I was into it when Mojo Rawley was tagging. Like, it's not
His
like he
hot
was
tag
doing
was
anything
good.
good, but yeah, his hot tag was good.
Yeah.
Everything about this was actually really, really fun. And as much as I hate him, I'm also willing to give people a chance if they're improving or if they're doing something good, because I figure it's a lot more fun to like the wrestling that I'm watching than to just be like, no, I've hated this and so I hate everything. Because then why am I watching? Like, that's just not
Well,
fun.
exactly. And then you look like an ass if it turns out down the road someone's actually gotten good and worked at their craft and gotten better, and you're still on kind of that train of no, this person is awful and I will always hate them.
Yeah, because then you're not enjoying the good things they're doing and you're also just making yourself miserable. I don't know. That's just never been my wrestling theory. So,
No, mine is absolutely like I have friends or that say, "Oh, I watch Raw every week and it's terrible." Well, what are you doing? Stop watching it. Find something else. Be it NXT, be it PWG, be it Chikara, be it New Japan, be it TNA. If that's really what you enjoy,
find something
go
to
out.
enjoy.
Yeah, yeah, and it's okay if every couple of months you check back in. Is it still awful? Okay, it's still awful. I'll go away again for a bit. You know, we all have so little time these days. This we're getting very philosophical now, but enjoy what you're doing with your time. And this is coming from a man that watched King of the Ring 1995.
It's
So
true. You realize how important time is and how,
yes,
I mean, that's dedication to your podcast, frankly.
that not only King of the Ring 1995, but In Your House 4, Uncensored
I was going to say
1996.
uncensored.
I tell you what looked interesting. Did you see the preview for next week's Breaking Ground?
I didn't, I don't think.
There's a short clip that I think it's going to be focused on the Hype Bros, and the angle they're taking is, Zack Ryder's been put down there, and are they really pals, and that sort of thing.
Oh, yeah, I did see that. And Mojo was kind of like, like we
Yeah,
try to make it work.
yeah, and he's like, does he think he's slumming it down here with me, or so I'll be quite curious to see how they're portrayed in that.
Yeah, that's a good point because Zack Ryder's kind of a dick, like in real life.
The thing
So,
is, like for him, he should be happy, in all honesty, because he was doing nothing for years. You know, he had his run in
Yeah.
2011. He's been doing nothing for years. He's now been put onto the show that there's a real good buzz about. Like, would he rather be losing to Stardust on Superstars, or would he rather be tagging with Bayley in front of a crowd that's going apeshit for everything they do?
He's doing something now, and that's a lot better than doing nothing. And I will say when because the main crux of this match, which was a fun match in its own right, but at the end, Alexa breaks up a pin. I forget who was pinning Zack Ryder. I think it was Buddy Murphy, but I'm not super sure. But Alexa breaks it up, and that's another thing I really like that they're doing. They're still not going with the intergender match thing, which I understand. I don't have a problem with intergender wrestling. I know Robert really, really hates it. Um, I kind of understand arguments on both sides.
Yeah.
He and I will probably do a show about that at some point for VIP if we can ever find time to get together. But what they're doing, I think they're doing it really, really intelligently. They have Alexa break up a pin.
Hmm.
So it's not like the guy attacking Alexa or whatever, because that's something they want to shy away from. But Alexa breaks up a pin. Bayley comes in immediately and is like, no, don't do that. I am going to, Bayley kill you. Because Bayley is finally her own person. She's come into her own. She's an independent person, and she has finally realized that, yeah, she belongs and she's at the top of her division, and she actually deserves to be at the top of her division. And that's a huge character thing for Bayley, right? So she
Yeah.
runs off Alexa. Alexa steals the women's title and runs off with it. Now, what doesn't Bayley do? Get distracted and then cause her team to lose, because this isn't Raw. So what happens instead? Bayley's upset about this, but she's also not the legal person in the match. And she's upset, but she's still going to go to the outside of the apron and she's going to see her team through, basically.
Yeah, and it's quite a big moment. Like you say, they're not going with the intergender thing. We're not seeing sort of Young Bucks, Joey Ryan, Candice LeRae type stuff, but
Right.
this is probably the first male-female violence in years on WWE television. There's been nothing. Did Randy Orton punt Stephanie in the head? What was that, 2009?
Yeah, I don't know because I wasn't even watching then, but I've seen clips of what he like kissed her or
Yeah,
something.
yeah. Maybe he didn't punt her, but
So he was more rapey
yeah,
than
yeah.
violent.
But I couldn't tell you a spot in years that's been anything like that other than Stephanie slapping men in the face. This was a wrestling move performed by a female wrestler to a male wrestler.
Yeah, Naomi did a terrible leg scissors takedown on Jimmy Uso once because they were fighting on Total Divas.
Oh,
Um, and Alexa has hit the Sparkle Splash on a couple
yes, yeah, yeah.
people,
Now that you mention it, yeah.
but it's rare. It's very rare, and it tends to always involve Alexa Bliss because she's with Blake and Murphy, and they're a team. They're a cohesive unit. So when, Bayley being with the Hype Bros, they're not a cohesive unit. They're not going to be a team because my brain and heart can't handle that. So that's not a thing. But what I liked about this, it made all of the sense in the world to me, right? Like Bayley doesn't abandon her team right away, but she does manage, like Blake and Murphy, well, the ref is distracted by Bayley being in the ring and he's like, no, get out of the ring. And she's like, but she took my belt and
Yeah.
all this stuff is going on. Blake and Murphy are trying to kind of cheat, like they're holding hands, trying to pin Zack Ryder and use the extra leverage and da 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 da. And Bayley's just like, no, screw this. And she kicks their hands apart and again helps out her team for the win. And then after she kicks their hands apart and everything, and Blake and Murphy are still being kind of dastardly, she gives the belly to Bayley to Buddy Murphy, or Bayley to belly, they say now.
I never remember which order that is.
I think they sometimes switch it out. It's supposed to be Bayley to belly now, I think, but I still get stuck in the Tom Phillips when he originally named it. It was belly to Bayley, after it was the Hugplex. But yeah, I mean, she gives the Bayley to belly to Buddy Murphy, and that's just huge. Like, that's different than a Sparkle Splash where someone's just prone on the ground, right? Like, she has to grab him,
And
slam
throw
him
him.
down, and then she's like, no, I am done with you. I will leave you to Zack Ryder and Mojo Rawley, because she trusts them for some reason. And she runs off after Alexa. And this makes perfect sense to me. And this is like way overthinking this, right? But like Alexa leaving Blake and Murphy takes away part of their team and takes away part of their team dynamic, because even though they were a good tag team before Alexa,
They're now
she's
used
part
to
of them
her.
now.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're used to her and they're used to her distractions to help them win. Mojo Rawley and Zack Ryder are not used to Bayley being there. Like, her being there is exciting, and she's, the most prominent member of that team because she's the champion. And I would say the women's title and the NXT title are pretty much on even keel at this point, which is awesome. So awesome. But Mojo Rawley and Zack Ryder, they are the cohesive unit, right? So it makes sense that the numbers game, as they always like to say, quote unquote, numbers game, it makes sense that Zack Ryder and Mojo Rawley would actually overcome when 1/3 of Blake Murphy and Alexa is gone, right?
Yeah, so they're still at 100%, whereas Blake and Murphy are theoretically at 66%.
Exactly. At WrestleMass,
There
Paul
you
Script
go.
update.
He'll
That one's for
appreciate
you,
that.
Paul.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I don't know. I kind of loved everything about this, and I thought I would hate everything about this. And so it was really exciting. I mean, when they went for the hype rider for the win, I don't think I've been that excited for a Zack Ryder pin since he pinned Dolph Ziggler in 2011 to become the US champion.
Yeah, I'd agree with that completely.
Even if it's excitement by proximity because of Bayley, it was
And
still
because
really exciting.
yeah, you wanted to see her team win.
Yeah, you did. Even if she wasn't there anymore, you still, it was still overcoming the evils of Alexa and Blake and Murphy. So I don't know. Good stuff all around. And Mojo Rawley was involved in a good thing. So let's mark this day down.
And then see if we can continue down that path, or if Son's Bayley next time, it's just back to them being kind of a thing that are there, but you could do without.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I still have kind of a soft spot in my heart for Zack Ryder, and I think he's improved in the ring, but yeah, it's not always super great. So I was really glad that I enjoyed this. And after that match was done, we saw the Ascension. Now,
Oh,
my
oh,
history with the Ascension has gone from, oh, they're so boring. Oh, I hate them. Why are they coming out to Death Clock music? Why are they still the champions? Seriously, 345 days is such a long time. Oh my gosh, they never beat anyone interesting. They're so boring. I would literally, Stuart, I would forget that their matches happened all the time. Like, Bob and I were doing this show, and I would have notes on the show. I would get to the part of my notes that said Ascension, and I'd be like, oh, wait, really?
were they
Oh, they
there?
were there. Huh. Same
That's
thing
how
with the Lucha
boring they
Dragons.
were. That's how boring they were.
Exactly. They've gone to the main roster. They were terrible from the get-go. Now, commentary did not help this, right? But I mean, I knew they were going to be shite because they were shite in NXT when they were the most dominant tag team in the history of dominance. It
See, I
got
like
to the
what.
point where when they were about to leave NXT and the crowd started yawing at Connor,
Yeah.
I was like, this is fun. This is kind of fun, actually. I like being able to chant yaw. How to get over in wrestling, have a catchphrase or raise your arms.
Oh, yeah, just a word that people are into. I think the most interesting they were, to be honest, was that sort of end run with Itami and Finn Balor. Like
Oh, yeah.
when they kind of did the whole thing where they interrupted Itami signing, and he did that whole badass thing where he sat on the chair and was like, come on then.
Yeah.
That was about the most interesting they'd been, other than facing Too Cool, which was weird and kind of awesome.
But no, the Ascension have gotten so, like, I love their thing with Stardust right now.
Right.
Now I've gotten to a point with the Ascension that they've kind of come full circle in that, oh, now they're just so bad, but I really want to yaw again. And so when Jason Jordan and Chad Gable were calling them out last week, as soon as they were like, let's face the most dominant tag team in the history of NXT, I was like, oh my gosh, the Ascension are coming back. The Ascension are coming back. I'm so excited about the Ascension coming back. Like, what is wrong with me? But I am really excited.
This promo though, if you told me this was a promo to promote Survivor Series 1989, I would have believed you, because
Yeah.
this is exactly what interviews were like in the early 90s. They would be stood in front of this kind of weird background. You'd have an image with their kind of logo projected on the back, and the delivery was just so out of the late 80s, early 90s. It was one of those things where it kind of came full circle from being so bad it was kind of good.
Yeah, my notes literally say for this Fury, grunting, Vic, preach.
Yeah,
You know,
which is a whole thing stolen from the Legion of Doom. I think that was kind of the Tell 'em Hawk type moment of the promo.
oh, was it? Okay, because I remember, like, right before the Ascension left, they were trying new things, finally. Because they'd sort of just still been aping the Kenneth Cameron Connor O'Brien
Yeah.
thing from the original Ascension, right? When their video was actually really, really cool when they entered. And at one point, Connor was like, Vic, preach. And I remember just being aghast on the show that week, being like, and Vic is preaching now? Like, first of all, he's calling him Vic, and second of all, he's telling him to
This
preach. And like,
this is a
what is
religious thing.
happening?
Yeah.
I don't know. Like, it baffled me, but I was kind of into it. And then they left, and then they were terrible. But we're back to that. And when they were back for the tag team tournament of Doom, it was really fun to yaw again. So I'm actually really excited about this. Plus, it's going to be Jason Jordan and Chad Gable, so it'll be good.
But this is the thing about NXT. Like they've spent 2 weeks promoting a tag team match featuring a tag team that on the main roster is presented as pretty much a joke. But
Yeah,
yeah, I'm actually quite excited about seeing this match. And yeah, that might just be down to Jordan and Gable, but that's 2 weeks promoting a match that is not for number one contendership, that's not for the title, that's not settling any kind of big score. It's a match to fill 10, 15 minutes on the show, but they've given it a pretty good reason to happen, and they've given the audience a pretty good reason to want to see it.
it's basically Jason Jordan and Chad Gable wanting to prove themselves because they don't feel that they have enough respect yet because they're not the number one contenders. And so they want to become the world's greatest Oh,
Oh,
wait,
wait,
they can't say that.
which, which was brilliant. Just
Oh, it was so good.
absolutely brilliant. That's one of the things, like sometimes WWE is really kind of tone deaf to what the audience is thinking. But that was one of those moments where everybody's been thinking that for ages, and they have just
Yeah.
and the fact that they've addressed it means everybody will be able to let it go.
Excellent. Yeah, exactly. It's great. And I mean it's like them singing Gable,
Yeah, yeah.
Gable. They acknowledge these things, and I love that they acknowledge these things. It works. It works so completely. And I'm really excited about the Ascension coming back, and that's something that I never ever thought I would say. Like I've said so many times, and then they can go to the main roster and they can go away and they can be done forever and I never have to see them again.
Do you think it will be a one time only? They come back, Gable and Jordan win, and they're done again. They can go back and do their thing with Stardust, or do you think they'll keep them around for any length of time? What
I'm
would be
not
your
really
thoughts?
sure. My guess, my initial feeling would be that it would be a one-time thing,
Yeah,
that it would
yeah.
be kind of a homecoming, and Jason and Gable would. I keep wanting to say Jason and Jordan. All these first names are just trouble.
Maybe they
Um,
should get rid of them.
no, no.
They
You've
can
just
just
given
be
me renewed motivation to get their names correct.
they can just be Jordan and Gable from now on.
Oh,
They
fucking hell.
it's like Madonna, you know. They don't
That's
need they don't
what they
need it.
say. Or Grado. Um,
Yes.
hashtag say yes, Madonna. Um,
It's a
yeah, I was
shame
just
that never really got anywhere.
I know, right? See, it's
Yeah.
difficult to explain my Scottish wrestling pride to most Americans over here
Is it though?
because, being part of Inside the Ropes has corrupted me 100%, totally and completely. And so I have this Scottish wrestling pride.
So Grado's at the forefront of that.
Well, yeah, I mean,
He's the man
mostly.
these days.
He is the man these days, and it's crazy. Like I get really excited also whenever Nikki Storm does anything ever. I
Yeah.
pretty much lose my shit. It was very cool to see Kaylee Ray on NXT a couple weeks ago too.
Oh yeah, yeah.
That was very exciting. But getting back on track, I guess, and speaking of women who I don't love so much in the ring, we had a little weird backstage segment. All of a sudden, things are getting really interesting in the women's division again. Eva Marie approaches Nia Jax backstage, and maybe they're going to conspire or something because she's like, hey, come over here and talk to me, but in Eva Marie Wooden way, so probably not with that much inflection, and
Or
probably just using her hair to gesture. I don't really know. That's what she
and with
does
no kind of personality whatsoever.
whatsoever. Oh my goodness. Now, it's always amazed me. Like, and I think Eva Marie is getting maybe slightly better in that she now can walk down a ramp. Um, but like the woman's a model, right? She's
Yeah.
clearly never done runway because for ages she couldn't even walk down a ramp convincingly.
Is she even like she's a model in the definition of she posed in a bikini? I don't think she's a model in the definition of she modeled fashion down a ramp. It's she's a model in the definition of some guy said, "Here's $100, let me photograph you in your underwear."
Yeah.
I think that's the extent of her modeling career, I think.
Or like a fitness model, quote unquote,
Yeah,
where she,
yeah.
did being fit and then got in pictures. I don't really know. Like it couldn't have involved actually moving either her face or her body in a convincing way.
No. Well, photos are good for that.
Yeah, exactly, exactly. So I don't know. I don't really understand. But Eva Marie conspiring with Nia Jax would make later events kind of confusing, and in a weird way, I kind of love it. But we saw Asuka being on a magazine cover in Japan, and I love her. I love her so completely. I think she's
Yep,
wonderful.
me too.
Yeah, she's so good. And after that, we got an Apollo Crews interview. He basically just kind of gives us exposition, but in way more dynamic fashion than Finn Balor is usually king of exposition, so I appreciated that. I don't know, have you ever noticed Finn Balor's interviews are, he is exposition, and he
Y-
sounds like a bored narrator.
Yeah, it's the same thing as his sort of trash talking later on in this show. It was like pretty unconvincing.
Yeah, it never has been very convincing, and I was more convinced by Apollo here, some. Um,
And this is
because
kind
he has kind of a fire in him, right? Like Baron interviewed in his title match, and he's like, "Is Baron mad because I threw him out of the battle royal? Because that's what I'm supposed to do. Because it's a battle royal. What? You don't think I want to win?" And he's like, "You want to get my attention? Now you have my attention. And when I get my hands on you, I'm gonna break you." And Apollo Crews finally has a story. He's not just smiling. He's not just happy to be here. He has a story and he has fire and he has a reason to go after somebody because somebody took away what he wanted, right? He wanted the title because the NXT belt is the most prestigious thing for him to get and it matters completely. And that's a thing in NXT, which is awesome, frankly, aside. But weirdly, one of my things here is that I think Baron Corbin being involved and getting involved in the title scene, and this is where I get complimentary of Baron Corbin, help my soul, I don't know. But
okay.
yeah, just stick with me. I think Baron Corbin being involved in the title scene has helped me connect to it better. Because I've been saying on the show for ages that the title scene is just not interesting to me. Like Finn Balor being the champion, I mean, he's the champion because Hideo Itami got injured. Hideo Itami, who I love, and was supposed to be the champion, right? Like the whole
Yeah.
Japan story, that was Hideo's, not Finn's. Hideo has been more involved in like being woven into the fabric of NXT than Finn has. Finn has always seemed kind of above NXT
Right.
because he's a big deal and he paints himself like a demon, which is awesome. But I think I said last week that Finn Balor putting on a jacket has made way more difference than you'd think a jacket would,
Yeah, yeah,
because maybe Jacket Finn Balor is actually part of NXT, right?
yeah.
Like, he seems like he kind of almost belongs here now, which is good. But I think Baron Corbin being involved in it kind of solidified it. Like, the NXT main event scene for me has almost seemed like they keep separating it too. They had that match between Finn Balor and what was it? I think it was Finn and Joe versus the Lucha Dragons or something, and it was before a main event taping,
Yeah, yeah.
and it was like
It was for
they
the
were doing,
tournament, wasn't it?
yeah, it was for
Yeah.
the tournament, and they did everything they could basically to divorce me from the NXT title scene. Like they're having the champion fight before main event, not even on a black mat. Like the ropes weren't yellow. Obviously, they're not going to change the ropes for that, but couldn't they have had a black canvas because they changed the canvas between every match? Like
Yeah.
they've done everything they can to make me feel disconnected from the main event scene because it's been all indie all the time. And not having been a wrestling fan for that long and not having seen a lot of the indie stuff, it's been really hard to get into because they're bringing these guys in and being like, these guys are big deals, trust me,
Yeah.
without giving them a story. But Baron Corbin has been in NXT for so long, and granted, he's the most boring wrestler, and granted, he's not good, and granted, everything about Baron Corbin, right? Like, I'm not saying I like Baron Corbin, but he seems to kind of bring it into the world of NXT for me. So I guess all I needed for the main event scene was for Baron Corbin to bring it down.
See, you say Finn is kind of a substitute for Hideo. I kind of felt like he was a substitute for Sami Zayn in that, like, we now don't have an end to that story with those guys, and
Right.
I get the feeling. This is just my hunch that may be nowhere near right. That it would have been Sammy beating Owens at Brooklyn.
And actually reclaiming the title, which would be the
Yeah,
first time that's ever happened in NXT.
yeah, and those guys have had a couple of ladder matches. They had one in PWG, I think, a show called Steenwolf, which is one of the greatest titles.
That's
And
really great.
yeah, and they had one at an ROH show as well. So those guys kind of have a history in ladder matches, which I'm sure they would have kind of made vague allusions to. We've had these matches before, kind of thing. But yeah, I kind of felt that Finn was a bit of a poor man's Sami Zayn in the sense of him and Kevin Owens, sorry, had no real beef, but he became number one contender, and then he goes on and wins the title, and then Owens goes on to the main roster, and I kind of feel it's a shame that we won't get a Sami Zayn Kevin Owens resolution on NXT. We'll get them feud on the main roster undoubtedly, but we won't get the kind of attention to detail that they'd get on NXT.
No, I agree. And that's something I've been saying. Like, I don't think Sami Zayn's coming back to NXT for any real period of time.
Right.
Like, I hope he comes back and gives us a farewell
Yeah.
because I think we deserve that at this point. But no, I mean, I can definitely see your point. Like, I think Sami Zayn was already out of the equation, so Hideo Itami was supposed to win, and then
Yeah.
Hideo Itami got injured, and there were just all these shoulder injuries right in a row that kind of screwed things up, right?
Yeah.
And so Finn Balor was the guy to plug into that spot.
So he was kind
And
of third choice.
yeah, he was kind of third choice. And I mean, Sami Zayn reclaiming the NXT title is something I wanted so badly because we never got to enjoy his title run. He was champion for what, 2 minutes
Yeah.
before he got powerbombed into an apron? Kevin Owens, biggest heel ever.
That
What's your deal?
yeah, but that debut, just going back, that whole story long arc, sorry, that whole show long arc was just awesome. Like you were waiting for it, weren't you? You were waiting for him to be a dickhead, to power bomb him on the apron. Like you knew like it just went on too long.
See, for me, I didn't expect it,
Oh, okay.
which was cool. Like I kind of preferred it because I was so caught up in the moment with that. Like when Bayley
Right.
won the championship, I was so caught up in it that it's one of those rare moments in wrestling where you put intelligent brain aside and you just go with it and you're in the story. So I
Yeah.
think that made it even more effective for me because they put the credit thing up before he power bombed him.
Yeah, which was a genius move as well,
So
completely.
genius.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I mean, just Kevin Owens stole our joy. And
And that's why we want him to come back and get his revenge.
exactly why we want him to come back and get his revenge. And I just hope that it's not for the Intercontinental title because it's cursed and I just don't want anything more to happen to Sami Zayn.
Plus, I think they told quite a good story within those guys' matches as well. In the first match between them, like Owens just decimates him. The second one, he kind of figured out a way to get to Owens, but not quite because he still had that killer move in his arsenal. So
Mm-hmm.
so he got so far, but not quite far enough. And I think you would have seen maybe over one or two more matches, he would have worked out the formula, and that would have been the story. Same as kind of the Sami Zayn Neville story in the
Right.
yeah, he figured out that he could stay. Same with Bayley, he could stay true to kind of what he thought was the right thing to do, and he didn't have to lower himself to do it.
He
And
didn't have to use the title and hit Adrian with it.
yeah, exactly. And he went on to win. So I think you would have seen a sort of similar thing with him and Owens in that, yeah, maybe match 3, match 4, however far they went with it, he would have figured out some sort of way to counter the power bomb and go on to get that title back. And I think that would have been an awesome moment.
I think that was probably the original story. At least it's the story I wanted to see, and it's the story that would have made the most sense. And I think that's been kind of my fear with NXT, bringing in so many indie talents, which is great. It's great for the wrestling, and it's great for the experience of people who haven't worked with a lot of experienced people. The ones that they're kind of farming from the ground up in the performance center, like
Yeah.
Baron Corbin, for instance. Like I think Corbin gets better when he works with people like Joe or when he works with people like Rhino. I don't know. I guess the moral of the story is that I'm a little more invested in the title scene, and I'm excited about that. So after Apollo Crews talks to us, and we get off onto a little bit of a tangent, which I enjoyed fully. Nia Jax versus Diana. Now I don't know anything about this Diana woman. Do you?
Nope, not a thing.
Okay. So that doesn't really matter that much. All I got when I put her name into Google was that she wrestles in the New York, New Jersey area.
Okay.
So probably maybe someone who got a tryout or something. I don't really know.
She's
I didn't put that much work into
she's
it.
not from Australia or New Zealand, which seems to be their thing.
Exactly. So Yeah, I love the Australia New Zealand women wrestling resurgence. I don't know, it seems to be working. It's like the Canada of women's wrestling.
Mm.
So, but yeah, they keep just talking about Nia Jax being powerful. Rich asked Byron if he's ever seen anyone in the women's division as powerful as Nia Jax. I would say Dana Brooke seems about as powerful as Nia Jax, Charlotte, but they're not as big as her.
Yeah.
So, I mean, she's the Braun Strowman of NXT.
At least they've got her out of that outfit she wore on the first match she had, because that was
I
awful.
have that written down.
Yeah. She looked like some sort of giant Christmas decoration in that first
It
one.
wasn't good. That shiny blue just accentuated every like
Shape.
bit
Yeah.
of shape. Like it wasn't good at all. What she's doing now is so much better. And yeah, I mean, she's a large woman. She is. That's fine. I like the diversity of body types and wrestling styles in the women's division. I mean, I'm sure a lot of people are going to body shame her and be like, oh, she's too fat, blah, blah, blah. No, I love it. I love that we're getting various styles and various types of women in the division because that's what you have in the men's division, right? Like
Absolutely.
Like Bray Wyatt's no Apollo Crews.
No.
And they're both really good. So I love that. I think Nia has promise. I mean, Nia could figure it out. I think Nia's doing better than she did in her debut. She's not doing much though. And
For
eh,
me, they just sit her down and they make her watch like a ton of Bull Nakano and Aja Kong stuff, and they just tell her do that because they were women, perhaps more Aja Kong of a similar size, who used that frame to their advantage without making it a thing. Like it's not like they were going in there and doing sort of fall down, sit fat person sits on somebody spots kind of stuff. Like
right.
they use their bulk and they use their mass to make them fearsome. So in the same way that they've obviously got Dash and Dawson sat there watching Arn Anderson and Tully Blanchard tapes, they get Nia
Right.
Jax and they sit her and they get her all this Bull Nakano Aja Kong stuff and say, do that, learn what these two do. Because they wrestled against sort of tiny framed women, and they did it in convincing ways with unique and convincing offense. And yeah, that's what I think they should be showing her.
I think so too. And I mean, it seems like they want to create a new Awesome Kong.
Yeah, because
Um,
their original attempt didn't really work,
it didn't
but
really work.
for a variety of reasons.
Yeah, a lot of that was just, life circumstances
Absolutely.
didn't work out there. And I mean, I don't think that's really anyone's fault. Um, but yeah, I mean, that's kind of seeming to be what they want. And I think that they could get there with her potentially. I think she's starting to move a little bit better. I think she's starting to come into her own as a character a little bit. I mean, she's still fairly new at this. She's only been doing this, what, like a year and a half?
Yeah.
It's not that long because I remember when she got signed, I think I might have been doing the show at that point actually, which hasn't been that long. I mean, that was July 2014. So, yeah, I still don't like her smiling.
No, it's kind of weird.
It's
It's
weird.
yeah.
And it's my thing with Nia Jax when she first debuted was that you want her to be this strong, dominant hoss woman, right?
Uh,
Exactly like you're building Dana Brooke to be.
Yeah.
And you want her to have this smile because she's so disaffected. But that's exactly what Asuka's doing 100 times better.
Yeah. And the thing is, in those introductory vignettes for Nia Jax, they painted kind of sort of this almost like mysterious, unemotive figure, and then yeah,
Yeah,
she comes out and she's smiley, and yeah, like you say, Asuka's doing the sort of I'm enjoying this face, probably the best anyone's ever done it, but
exactly.
so Nia doing it is not working.
And I don't really understand what she's meant to be, I guess, either. Like, is she meant to be a heel? Is she meant to be a baby face? Is she
Well,
meant to be neither? I mean, it's like when Baron Corbin started, I had no idea what I was supposed to think about him for a very long time, and I don't think that's great. I know that it's an introduction, and I can understand that. I just don't know to what I'm being introduced.
but I think they've kind of done that with Asuka a bit as well, though, in that they've not outright said this is a babyface character. It's just she's kind of facing heels at the minute and nondescript underneath talent. But obviously the little vignette we get in a second, she doesn't really paint herself in either light, and I think they're going for that ambiguous thing. Like, I guess if she's facing Carmella next week, like Carmella's a face, right?
Yeah.
So, dependent upon how much she destroys her, I guess will maybe paint you a picture of which side of the fence she's going to fall on.
I think so. And I mean, I was going more for like toward the heel side, especially after this match when she beat Deanna with, what was it, a spine buster and a leg
Leg
drop, and
drop,
then it was
yeah.
done. Like, okay, okay, it's fine, I guess. Do what you do. But when she was like wiping her feet, like, no, done with you, bitch. Like, that
Yeah.
wasn't hard. So that came off as heelish to me. And if she's, you know, conspiring with Eva Marie backstage, that means heel. But then later on,
She gives Bayley
it's
the belt
she
back.
gives Bayley the belt back. It's really confusing. They showed us footage of the live event in Texas where the Vaudevillains were defeated by the Mechanics to remind us that the Mechanics had beaten the Vaudevillains prior. And I just wish they would call them the Mechanics again.
Nope.
William Regal underwent successful neck surgery, so they told us about that, and I'm really glad that it was successful. I'm really bummed we're not going to get Regal in a match in London.
Yeah, because I mean, I'm going to the Nottingham show, but I was kind of like, if they were going to announce a Regal match, I would have kind of gone out of my way to kind of pay over the odds to go and see that in London, which is a
Yeah,
shame.
like if Michigan weren't so far away from London, because it's really far away from London. Like, even I can't justify that being my birthday present to myself. But we did have a segment with Bayley looking for Alexa Bliss backstage because she wants her belt back. And Alexa's taking photos with the title. Now, my question here, who's that photographer? And what even is he doing?
Here's hoping he's employed by them, and she's just not found some random dude that wants to take pictures of her, which would be fine. I'd do it, but
I was wondering if it was someone from TMZ who like snuck into the building or
possibly.
something. You know, I would like to know more about his story. And also, wouldn't wouldn't you get in trouble for that? Like, no, that's stolen property and she's not the champion. So what even are you doing? I don't know.
She just wants it to stick on Christmas cards she's going to send to like her family and friends.
Yeah, basically,
Look, I'm
basically.
look, I'm the champion. No, you don't need to watch the program to verify that. Look at my card.
No, just don't pay attention to what's happening on TV. Look at my picture.
Yeah, here I am. I'm clearly holding the belt. It's clearly mine.
And no one has ever stolen a belt before
No, absolutely
without
not.
being champion. That's never happened. So clearly I must be the champion. But yeah, Alexa's taking pictures with it. Bayley comes up. Alexa just drops the belt basically. The photographer disappears, I assume, being afraid of Bayley, as
Just
he should be.
wanders off.
Just wanders off, never to be seen again. And Bayley picks up the belt. She's about to, go back to wherever she was going. And she runs into Nia Jax. Not what I expected.
Nope.
That was kind of weird. I think my initial reaction was, no, Nia, no, 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 no. But they have kind of a little stare down. Alexa attacks Bayley from behind and says, "That's what you get, Bayley." And then Alexa goes to kind of pick up the belt again. Nia looks at Alexa and she's like, "Oh shit,"
Yeah.
and runs away. And then Nia picks up the belt, looks at it, and at this point I was like, no, 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 no. But then she gives it back to Bayley. So she's saving Bayley?
See,
Is she saving Bayley for Eva?
yeah, I think that's the route it's going. Like, I don't know if we're going to kind of maybe get a WrestleMania 4 type deal where maybe Nia beats Bayley for the title but gives it to Eva Marie, like she's paying her off or something to that effect.
Oh, let's never do something like that.
Yeah, or it'll just be a sort of more obvious route and they'll just have Nia become Eva's bodyguard or something.
Yeah. Yeah, that seems more like a thing. I mean, I swear Nia might be a better wrestler than Eva at this point, and Nia is bad. Like this whole pairing is very interesting, and I think this segment brings the women's title scene in a very interesting direction. There's a lot of ways it could go, right? Like we're getting Bayley
Yeah.
versus Alexa next week, and that could involve all sorts of shenanigans. You don't know how that's going to go down because between Blake and Murphy and now Nia and Eva potentially being a thing, and what I like about it is that it means a lot of women want that belt, and that's the most important thing to them.
Yeah, and they're kind of in a resetting phase at the minute, aren't they? Like they've just
Yeah.
lost three of the girls who have been like a massive part of the division for a year, so they're resetting, and you've got Bayley feuding with Alexa, who's kind of been around, but she's kind of not been a wrestler for a few months now. But you've got the whole Eva thing going on, and they're introducing Asuka and they're introducing Nia Jax, and then you've got the two Australian women who they're kind of enhancement talent, but I think they're going to get gimmicks. So yeah, this
Yeah, I'm sure that they will. And I mean, they can be kind of fodder for matches along the way, right? Like there are women available so that it's not everybody fighting the same person every week.
yeah, which is the great thing about NXT, in that they don't burn through the matches that you're actually interested in seeing. So they bring in, like you say, the Kaylee Rays and all these Australian women as well, and they don't burn through, Bayley versus Alexa. They don't burn through Nia versus Asuka. They don't burn through Emma versus Asuka. They make you wait for that while you get to see Asuka murder Cameron, which was the greatest thing.
I loved that match so much.
Yes.
I spent about at least a third of last week's NXT rundown just talking about how much I loved that match.
We've watched an obscene amount of Total Divas in our house, and Cameron
Oh, me
is
too.
the most offensive person on that show, and it's full of offensive people.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Like, she has absolutely no redeeming qualities other than she wants to be famous. That is her whole modus operandi. Have you ever heard of a documentary called Gaia Girls?
I feel like I've heard the name of it and haven't seen it.
It's a BBC documentary from, like, I think either the late 90s or early 2000s, and they go and film one of these like crazy dojos in Japan where they train female wrestlers, and they
Oh,
show like the absolute like brutal conditions they put these women through just for the chance to have a match, and like how like mentally, physically, psychologically they break them, in an effort to get one person that's actually going to be any good out of it. My plot for a WWE Network show is Total Gaia Girls, where
oh,
where we send Eva Marie and Cameron off to one of these brutal Japanese training camps, and they like eat the dog that she carries around in her handbag, and you know it,
that's now what I want to see more than anything else I want to see.
it,
Like in the world, that is the thing I want to see most.
I mean, it sounds so like smarky and internet funny, doesn't internet funny? Sorry, that was
Internet fanny.
that
That's
that
Sunny's category
yeah, that was
there.
not what
Just
I meant to say. But it sounds, oh well, they've not paid their dues and blah blah blah, and that's not it at all, because Dana Brooke wasn't an independent female women's wrestler, but she at least looks like she's trying to get better at the job she has chosen
or
to
Alexa
do.
Bliss or Carmella,
Yeah, exactly. Whereas the Eva Marie's
Summer Rae.
and the Camerons of the world just come in, and like it was so bizarre to me, like in the season 5 episodes of Total Divas, that you've got kind of this plot where Eva's like, well, yeah, I guess I should learn to wrestle, and it's like,
Right?
it's like shit, like if you were just a Total Divas fan and you just watched it on would you be surprised to learn that this girl doesn't do the job you thought she did for 5 years?
Even when she was training with D. Brian Kendrick, she'd go home and be like, "Oh, this is so hard."
Yeah, when
Oh, and she'd whine about it, and it was like, "No, the point of this story is supposed to be you having your redemption and learning, and like you're going home and going, I don't know what I want to do because I don't know if I can do a finishing move." Like,
so I'll pick a really complex one and suck at it.
and just everything about her is, I wanted her to be good when she re-debuted.
Yeah.
I had high hopes. I was like, no, if she can prove everybody wrong, awesome.
If she could have some basic level of competence where you thought, actually, she's really gone away and she's really tried, and there is a marked difference between what she was before and what she is now.
Which is supposed to be the story, and instead she's forgetting to kick out of pins and
Doing awful big
not knowing how to
boots.
put on arm bars. Like,
Yeah.
what even are you doing? Like, yeah, she was put on TV way too soon, but
But in a way, then you just kind of wonder: are they just going to build us some match where like Asuka absolutely kills her, and that's the end of that story? Like, I don't think that's the
I
end.
hope
I
so.
don't think that's the end of that story. But if that is the end of that story, I'd be fine with that as a sort of tale. As this girl thought she could come in and do this, turns out, ha, she can't. but
Yeah, exactly. And I'd be fine with that. I mean, that's the Mojo Rawley story, isn't it?
pretty much, maybe,
Because they pushed him pretty hard at first with his ass-based offense. And they were like, yeah, hype is the best. And then there was that beautiful moment where Alexander Rusev just squashed him.
and that was the end of that.
And that was the end of that. And then, from then on, it was like, nope, just get squashed. I mean, he got squashed by Tyler Breeze. It was the most beautiful thing. But yeah, basically, women's scene getting complicated. I kind of love it, and I'm interested to see where it goes. And it did make me a little more curious about Nia, if only to wonder, what is your deal?
Yeah.
Which is something. So there's that. And then we got what I thought was the main event of the evening, because I completely 100% forgot about the interview segment when I was watching it back again. But the Mechanics versus the Vaudevillains. Now, before we get started about the match, I have to say I feel very bad for the Vaudevillains here
Yeah.
because they won the belts in Brooklyn. It was awesome. It was really, really awesome. And right now, as we speak, I am wearing my Vaudevillain shirt. I love the Vaudevillains. I do. I don't love them as much as I love Jason Jordan and Chad Gable, and I don't love them as much as I love the Mechanics, because I've been a Mechanics fan for a very, very long time, or at least, a Scott Dawson fan.
Right.
Ever since those presentation skills videos in 2013, where
Yeah.
he had that thing with Alexa Bliss about the teacup pig, I was
Yep.
like, I'm in love with both of you.
Yeah, and she was doing like the white trash thing, wasn't she?
Yeah, and
Yeah.
she was so good at it,
Yep.
and it was so great, and yeah. I've been a Mechanics fan for a long time, but the Vaudevillains basically, they won the belts, and then the tag team tournament of Doom started. So you saw them in round one, and they were not on TV again until after TakeOver.
Mm.
And they were the champions. Like, at least put them on TV, right? Like,
Yeah, I mean, if they're not going to go that far in the tournament, like, give them a match against somebody on the show, maybe. But
yeah, have them beat Sawyer Fulton and Angelo Dawkins or
yeah,
something. Like, just do something with them. So that was one of my big problems with the tournament, was that it overshadowed the tag team division, which seems really counterintuitive, but if you think about it, it completely overshadowed the tag team division. And so poor Vaudevillains here, although the way this match went down, they don't deserve to be the tag team champions because they were stupid. They were Enzo and Cass level stupid. Aiden English was in the match forever, right? Getting his leg worked over by both Scott Dawson and Dash Wilder, because they're so good at picking a body part and being like, no, I will murder, death, kill this body part of yours, and then you will lose.
yep,
Because your body is disabled, right?
because I've taken your leg and it is now gone.
Yes, we've completely gotten rid of that leg, 100%. Don't expect to use it. It's ours now. Just stop. And that's exactly what they did. And I mean, I liked in the match, well, I think it was after Aiden English tagged back in stupidly, when they
Yeah,
did the exact same thing as they did to Colin Cassidy
the knee drop.
with
Yeah,
the knee drop. Yeah, yeah, yeah. So, I mean, it was kind of the clincher, right? But it really bothered me because I thought this match was very good. I liked it. I liked it a lot. I mean, of course I did. It was the Vaudevillains and the Mechanics, and how is that not something I'm going to like? But Aiden English being in there forever and then finally getting the hot tag to Simon Gotch, finally, after so long. And most people consider Simon Gotch kind of more the star of the Vaudevillains, probably,
yeah,
because his mustache is curlier and his offense is kind of really eccentric, unique. I love it. I do love it. I've been an Aiden English fan for a lot longer, so he's my favorite. But Simon Gotch is the getter of hot tags, and he came in. He did what, like
Thir
2
30
moves?
seconds, if that.
Yeah. He inflicted no damage because it's not like the Mechanics had been taking damage at the hands of Aiden English. Like, he hit them down once to be able to get a hot tag. And then he tags Aiden back in,
Yeah, that kind of painted them, and even the commentary called them out as being stupid for doing that.
as
With
they should have.
y- yes and no, I think in that it, yeah, it's such a gapingly obvious plot hole for him to do it that if they ignored it, everyone would be going, "Why aren't you mentioning that?" But at the same time, to do it, going, "Well, these guys are stupid." It's like your baby faces shouldn't be stupid. Your baby faces should be smart, but occasionally get outsmarted by the heels, but are smarter in the long term. Whereas this was like the heels are smart, the baby faces are dumb, the heels win.
Right. And I guess I'm just glad commentary called it out because that's exactly what happened.
Yeah,
And so, like, I was really angry. In fact, I yelled at my television the first time I saw it. I was like, "You're not Enzo and Cass. What are you doing? You're not supposed to be as stupid as them." Like, there's a reason that you beat Enzo and Cass. Because that's
Mm.
a point of contention between myself and Enzo and Cass as a tag team, is that often they were doing the thing where Enzo would be like out, dead, whatever, and Colin would still tag him in
And throw him off the top.
and throw him off the top. And I get Air Enzo is their thing, but like if your partner can barely move, maybe don't tag him in.
Probably not the best idea. What happened to the Empire Elbow?
I don't know. I don't know. It disappeared or something.
Mm.
It's unfortunate. So this bothered me because I am a Vaudevillains fan, and the Vaudevillains have never been this stupid. The Vaudevillains have always been cunning
Yeah.
because they're foiling, you know, plots of the Lucha Dragons. They're foiling them tying women to railroad tracks and bombing
Make,
buildings and things.
yeah.
And they're clever and awesome, and they were not clever and awesome here. They were stupid. And it makes my heart sad that they were stupid.
Yeah, and I do feel bad for them in that, like you say, their title reign has kind of got the shaft in the sense that they had that big moment at Brooklyn. They went straight into the tag tournament. They were eliminated from the tag tournament. The tag tournament ends. They lose the titles.
I mean, they were more afterthoughts than the Lucha Dragons, it almost seemed. At least the Lucha Dragons were on TV when they were the
Yeah,
champions. I would always forget that they were on TV. I'm very convinced that I had a serious case of tag team blindness for a year. But like I don't know, it bugs me. And the fact that this match didn't go on last also, which I had forgotten, like I said, when I was watching it back, I was like, okay, so I'm at the main event. I'm almost, I'm done taking my notes. Cool. I'd totally forgotten that Samoa Joe closes the show, and that just to me too says the tag titles are such an afterthought in NXT still, even though they're building these tag teams. They're building these really awesome tag teams that are so good at tag team offense, right? Like they're really focusing on tandem offense and tandem finishers and good teamwork and cutting off the ring and all these good things that they've been developing in the tag teams in NXT, and we have a number of them. I mean, that's something that the tag tournament showed us is even though they did put some random people together, and even though they got to the finals, which doesn't make any sense because, tag teams should outsmart you singles wrestling, but whatever, I'm not going to go into that because I've already ranted about that a lot in the past. We do have a number of tag teams that are very good, and it's still just such an afterthought, and it makes me sad because I really, really like tag wrestling.
do you think they're going to go the route of turning Jordan and Gable face and that be the big thing with those two against Dawson and Dash?
I think they're
Is,
already faces.
yeah, certainly to the Full Sail crowd they are, but I think they're kind of still presented a little bit as sort of overconfident jerks.
Yeah, but I kind of feel like all WWE baby faces are overconfident jerks, with the exception of Sami Zayn, Bayley, and Daniel Bryan mostly.
They're the only people who are actually likable.
Yeah, exactly. And Chad Gable and Jason Jordan are, I mean, they're still overconfident, but I don't know if they're even overconfident at this point. They're confident and they're confident in their skills. And I mean, the way that it was played off in the tournament, when they were in the tournament, they were doing all of the babyface offense. I think they still slip into kind of dickhead mode every once in a while
Yeah,
because they were trying to be arrogant heels, but I mean, you only have to witness Dolph Ziggler to know that that doesn't matter.
yeah, absolutely.
So I think they're already a babyface team. I think the crowd is so behind them. I mean, they're the most over tag team for sure. And
I'd argue they're the most over male performers there at the minute.
I would not disagree with you. I think you're right. I think there's good reason for it. Um, it's a little odd that the tag team situation is such a back burner deal for NXT when some of the men in the tag team division are the most over performers. I mean, you have these major, major indie stars coming in for your main event scene, and I mean, the crowd was fully behind Tyler Breeze at that battle royal. They were
Oh
mad.
yeah, yeah.
Like when Samoa Joe tossed out Tyler Breeze, resounding boos, and then thank you, Tyler, when he pulled Joe out. So
Do you think there's then a bit of a groundswell of, okay, we all love the big indie guys coming in, and yeah, sure, they popped big for James Storm coming, and Joe got a great reaction when he came out, but maybe there's a little bit of a groundswell amongst the Full Sail crowd for the guys that have been there a while.
I think so. I mean, I've been talking about it for a while as like my NXT identity crisis, right?
Right.
because I've grown up, quote unquote, in wrestling with these performers. It's why I'm still so attached to Bray Wyatt. It's why I'm so attached to so many people that on the main roster just kind of get forgotten and shoved aside a lot of the time. And it
Right.
upsets me. Like, I am still a huge Vaudevillains fan. I don't care. Like,
Yeah, me too. Me too. Yeah,
he's so
absolutely.
good and everything he does is still so good. And it's unfortunate that he's treated like a joke and that a lot of fandom is like, oh, why is he still around? He's such a joke. Well, because he's actually really good. And maybe if everyone would just see that, yeah, let's not focus on people's places on the card. Let's focus on the
Yeah.
performers. Thanks, right? And that's been my, NXT identity crisis. And I want to cheer for the guys that I've seen for so long. And the guys that they've been bringing in from the indies, they've been doing that thing like they do on Raw, where they say, these people are important, trust us, but they don't show their work and they don't tell me a story.
Yeah, but to WWE's credit, I think the one exception to that is Asuka. Like they've gone out of their way to
Right.
to show footage from Japan that shows her kicking people really hard in the face that says you should pay attention to this person because of this.
Well, and they immediately put her into a story with Dana Brooke.
Yeah, yeah, which I guess is more difficult to do with Joe, where the majority of the footage I guess they would have access to, or wouldn't have access to rather, is TNA,
Yeah.
which they wouldn't want to be showing.
Right. And I mean, the thing is with Finn Balor, for all the documentaries and stuff that they've done on him, it makes me like him as a guy,
Yeah.
but it doesn't tell me a wrestling story. It tells me a person story.
But they seem to be big into that because that was the same thing with Apollo Crews. It was like
Yeah,
this is why you should like this person as a person, not this is why this guy's an awesome wrestler.
exactly. And that's part of the problem I've had with Apollo Crews up until this point too, which is why him going after Baron Corbin now and being upset with Baron Corbin and having a wrestling story
Hmm.
is making me a lot more invested in Apollo Crews. Do I think his offense is great? Yeah. Do I think he's incredibly athletic? Yeah. Do I think he's a good wrestler? Yeah. Did I really care about Apollo Crews? No. Did I
Yeah.
yell really, really loudly when he beat Tyler Breeze because I was really, really upset? Yeah, I did. I was not happy about that at all. And I've been saying it for a few weeks, well, probably forever, who knows? But like, you're wrestling. Give me a wrestling story. The
Hmm.
person story is cool, but I really just want to know like why you're fighting and what you're doing. And NXT has always been so good at that, right? Like it's
Yeah.
always told me why they're fighting and what they're doing. Bo Dallas wanted the title from Biggie Langston because having that title meant that you got to go to Raw and SmackDown because that was still the goal at that point, right? Like
Yeah.
having that means you get to go there. He was in the Royal Rumble before that and like it never went anywhere and it was never a thing. He won that belt. He did end up going to the main roster after that. Adrian Neville wanted that belt because he wanted to be the best. And he was trying to, get above Bo, who'd been cheating via his tag team partner, the Turnbuckle, right? Like
Yeah.
Sami Zayn had this 2 year quest to be the champion. Kevin Owens took away our joy and just took the belt, and it was the worst thing, but it was the best thing for story.
Yeah.
And then Finn Balor and Halt is kind of how it's felt to me,
Yeah. 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 I definitely agree with you there.
if that makes any sense. I don't know, but
Yeah, well, this is sort of awkward line, isn't there, between NXT as super indie and NXT as WWE story place.
right. And WWE Story Place has always been my favorite thing about NXT. Before it was Indie Place, before it was
So,
everything else.
so I guess that's where they've kind of, for you, then gone right with Asuka in that she's that we've seen footage of her being awesome in Japan, but she's gone straight into WWE storyline where Dana Brooke and Emma come out and play Mean Girls, and they then kind of regret that, and it's an awesome story because they all pull really cool faces.
Yeah, they really, really do, don't they? And
Yeah,
then Dana forgetting the match because she was so laid out by Asuka that she's like, "What is
yeah,
it over? It was really quick. I beat her, right? I beat
yeah,
her."
yeah, and
And
they're like, check her, she's got a concussion.
exactly,
Yeah,
exactly. And now Dana Brooke is just sort of broken and still doesn't really know what happened. And now we're
yeah.
gonna get Emma versus Asuka, which is gonna be fantastic. Like I really want to see how Asuka's gonna counter the Emma lock, right?
Yeah, I mean, I think the most criminally ignored match of this last couple of years is Paige and Emma.
Oh, absolutely.
Like we've all gone over how, and don't get me wrong, I love Sasha Banks and I love the matches they've had over the last year, but that
Paige and
kind
Emma started it.
Paige and Emma seems to have been forgotten as being that was the first women's match in WWE in such a long time that felt important
Mm-hmm.
and was presented as important, even more important than the tournament where Paige beat Emma in the final in the first place. Their rematch at Arrival was given time and was given focus and sort of set the scene for everything that came after that, even though Paige and Emma weren't a part of it.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that that's why I kind of feel like Emma is the most criminally underrated in this whole Divas chat scene that's
Yeah,
going on right now because she was one of the two that actually started it. And I mean, it's funny because I actually have the Inside the Ropes episode from right after Arrival. I kind of like keep that one on my computer. I
right.
listen to it sometimes because it's really interesting to hear everybody else like, "Oh, wait, I watched this NXT thing and it was really good." And a lot of the discussion is about Paige and Emma and how good that was. And they're like, wait, women wrestling, that can be a thing. Like they're chanting better than Batista for her power bomb.
And
They're,
and it goes longer than 3 minutes, and
yeah,
yeah,
it's like, wow, wrestling matches can happen with women in them if they go longer than 3 minutes. This is amazing. So I feel like they kind of started the whole thing. And so no, you're right. Like with Asuka getting involved in the story right away, that means that she's embedded herself into the fabric of NXT. Hideo Itami getting involved with the Ascension right away, even though I hated that month where he was just getting beaten down because it made him look like the biggest doofus, right?
yeah,
Like, why are you attacking these two people when they keep beating you? But it put him in an NXT story right away.
yeah,
I feel like the main event scene has been floating above the NXT story level. It's like this is the indie guys section kind of up here in the sky, and then there's the rest of NXT that you love.
yeah. Here's Tyler Breeze.
Yeah, here's Tyler Breeze basically, and Tyler Breeze tries to connect the two, and it just doesn't pan out. So like Samoa Joe explaining himself at the end of the show, even though I forgot about the promo at first, it was good.
Yes,
Samoa
yes,
Joe says that he makes choices, and he explained the whole history and the logic, and I appreciated that. And it's starting to make him feel a little bit more connected too,
yeah,
because, you know, he goes through the whole Finn came to me to partner up for what I call the Tournament of Doom. He didn't say that, but what I call the Tournament of Doom. And, you know, Joe made the choice to accept that and he did the right thing. And he, you know, they took it because he carried Finn through that. Now that's interesting because Finn was injured in the semifinal,
yep,
you know?
yep.
And Joe did kind of have to carry that second match because Finn was limping on his way out to the ring because he knows how to sell a leg, which maybe people should learn.
Plus, you had that little
Um,
moment where at the end of the semi-final where Finn tags himself in, and Joe's a little bit like, "Hang on, what are you doing?"
like,
And
what are you
and
doing?
Finn's like, "No, no, I've got this," and they win, and that's cool. But there was still that tiny moment where it's like, "Hang on, you're injured. I'll deal with this."
Where Joe thought maybe Finn Balor was being like Aiden English in
Yeah,
this
yeah,
week's episode.
yeah,
You know, and I mean, he's Finn Balor. He's the most overpowered wrestler in NXT. So yeah, he won. But Joe had a right to be like, hey, I don't really know what you're doing here, kiddo. I'm glad it worked out. But then he mentions how he asked Finn for a chance at the title. And to Finn's credit, Finn gave that shot to him. But then William Regal stepped in the way, you know, logical GM managing things generally and being like, no, you can't just get a title shot. That's not how things work around here, which I loved. But Joe blames Finn for letting William Regal step up.
yeah,
And, you know, it kind of makes sense, right? Like, William Regal tried to step in between Sami Zayn and Kevin Owens, but Sami Zayn and Kevin Owens had him over a barrel because Kevin was like, I'm not fighting Sami unless it's for that. And Sami's like, I'm not fighting anyone unless it's him because I want to kill him.
yeah,
So William Regal didn't have a choice. Finn Balor was like, no, that makes sense. Battle Royal, awesome.
yeah. Because I don't know about you, like for me, like like you say, Joe's explanation was perfectly rational. Like
Yeah,
he almost didn't come across as a bad guy until towards the end of it, where he was like, "I'm Samoa Joe and I walk here and I should be entitled to this." But
right.
the initial explanation of it was very much like, "Yeah, he agreed to something and then didn't do it. He's a jerk." Okay, I'll buy that.
Yeah, and I mean, logically, William Regal had every right to be like, no, you're in the Battle Royal. But Joe's mind, he doesn't understand that. Like, Finn was going to give him the title shot. He should get the title shot. Why shouldn't he get it? Why does he have to be in a Battle Royal that he feels he was screwed out of by Tyler Breeze?
Yeah,
You know, I mean, even though that's fair and square, it's Battle Royal, but in Joe's mind, he feels slighted. And he says that being even put in the Battle Royal was an insult because, in case you haven't heard, I'm Samoa Joe. And that's where he gets kind of heelish about it and he gets entitled and he gets arrogant. And I like it. Like, this is the kind of thing I've wanted to see from Samoa Joe because I haven't been invested in him yet. I don't really know that much of his prior work. I've seen some of his stuff with Punk, I've seen some of his stuff with Angle, really, 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 really good, but it's only been in isolated clips.
Yeah.
So I've never really seen a Samoa Joe story be compelling, and story is big for me. Like I love matches and I love awesome moves in matches and I love spots, but I love when those matches are telling me stories too. And I feel like we might be finally getting that, and the main event scene is finally kind of coming. I don't want to say coming down to NXT because that makes it sound like NXT is a little subpar, but like it's becoming integrated maybe. Like maybe it's going to be a part of NXT again, and I'm really excited about that.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. I think Joe was kind of a tiny bit of a victim of Kevin Owens being called up because we had that big moment where Owens had been bullying Sammy around for months and acting like a dick and power bombing people on the apron, and then out came this guy that he was
Yeah.
not going to be able to bully around, and yeah, the story there was going to be pick on someone your own size, I think. But then Owens gets called up, and Joe was kind of in limbo, kind of had the Baron Corbin thing, but it was okay. It just wasn't really that interesting. And then, like you say, you go into the tag tournament, but I guess, you know, the main event singles scene took a back seat to facilitate this story now.
Yeah. And I'm glad that we're kind of moving on to an actual story now. And you still have Apollo Crews and Baron Corbin being kind of like the secondary people involved in the title scene, right?
Yeah.
Like they're still kind of lingering around there so you can have cool interactions between the four of them, but they're not like the top four guys. It's not like when we had Sammy and Adrian and Tyler and like
Yeah,
Tyson,
that's
right?
exactly what I was
It's
about to say. Like they're going to occupy the Tyler Breeze slot just below the main event, but still interacting with the main event.
Yeah. And so I think it's going to work. And I think even though we're in kind of a rebuilding phase, I think both the NXT title scene, which I've not been invested in at all, and the women's title scene, which I've been the most invested in, I think they all have a lot of different directions to go. And I'm interested to see it. I mean, even the tag title scene, if it seems like kind of an afterthought, like I said, I do have a problem with Samoa Joe coming out explaining himself, and then, Finn Balor confronts him and gets put into his sleeper body scissors for his trouble, and we go off the air with Finn Balor gasping for breath. Like, could that not have opened the show? Did that have to be the last image we saw? Couldn't we have ended it on our new tag team champions? I have a little bit of an issue with that, but even the tag title scene is interesting because you have the Vaudevillains who are going to have a rematch coming at some point.
Yeah.
You have the Mechanics who are the new tag champions that maybe people didn't expect, even though I've loved them forever. A lot of people don't understand why. But then you have Jason Jordan and Chad Gable, who are the actual true stars of the tag team division. You still have Buddy Wesley, no, Buddy Murphy and Wesley Blake, who were the former tag team champions and are still very much a thing. Sawyer Fulton and Angelo Dawkins seem to be breaking up, and no one
Cares.
cares. But there are teams, there are things, there's stuff happening,
Yeah.
and I'm really glad about that. So I'm going out on a positive note again, which is exciting for me.
I think this was a positive show. Like I said very early on, this is sort of our Saturday, Sunday morning viewing that, even a bad episode of this, like when wrestling is an hour, even a bad episode isn't a slog to get through, or even a less
Right.
a less than good episode isn't a slog to get through. But when you've got a good 50 minutes, it just breezes by, and yeah, you feel like you can come out with a positive rather than like a 3 hour show where you're scraping to find things you enjoy. A 50-minute show where, one or two or three things on a good show leap out at you. Well, that's awesome.
Because then you get, proportionally, it's still a good part of the show.
Yeah,
And you're right, like having it be 1 hour instead of three really, really helps it because it's not this undertaking that's, I don't know,
it's
so monstrous, basically. Like I
yeah,
can't imagine having to review Raw in depth.
no, absolutely not.
That would be the worst. So yeah, I don't know. That's why I like that I have this show instead. But thank you for joining me, Stuart. This has been really fun.
No, it's been awesome. Thank you for having me.
So do you want to plug things? I know you have things to plug, your
Yeah.
podcast that I love. So
So, New Generation Project Podcast, Twitter, Facebook, New Gen Podcast. Search for us under those names. You'll find something. So, yeah, we cover WWE or WWF rather, some WCW stuff, and we'll start doing some ECW stuff in '97. Between 93 and 98. We've just reached the end of 96, so kind of between now and Christmas, I'll be honest, I'm taking it a little bit easier. We're doing some Q&As at the minute. We're going to do the new Owen Hart Blu-ray, which I'm really looking forward to
Oh,
reviewing. And then actually, we've not told anyone this yet, so here you go. We're going to do our first ever sort of fans choose type episode for a Christmas thing. But we'll begin 97 in earnest in the new year. But yeah, iTunes, SoundCloud, Facebook, Twitter, all those general things, New Gen Podcast. Yeah, if you either loved that period of wrestling or want to find out about it, I'd like to think it's good for people to reminisce and good for people to learn.
it's excellent for me to learn because it means that I can learn what happened without having to actually watch things that
Because
happened.
some of it's terrible.
Because some of it's terrible. And also, it's just, there's so much wrestling,
Yeah.
and there's so much current wrestling that it's hard to really go back and do a lot of homework sometimes. So that's why I appreciate you guys and your efforts, especially because there's no way I'm visiting some of that stuff in 95.
Yeah, stay away.
Yeah, stay far, far away. So, no, it's been lovely having you. I am on Twitter at SondraRuthRW. You can obviously get in touch with Inside the Ropes, facebook.com/The Inside Network. Give us a like, join in the conversation, as Robert always likes to say. Feel free to comment on this video. Also, I really like feedback. If you want to let me know what you think, let me know if you think I'm way off base on something, if you think Stewart's way off base on something, if you're like, no, Stewart was way smarter than you, what are you even doing hosting a show? Like, leave comments. Leave comments for me. I would really appreciate it. Like the videos, subscribe to our channel, all those things that people say when they're on YouTube, and I'm still getting used to being on YouTube, so sometimes I kind of forget about these things. But no, I would really appreciate the feedback because I'm still trying to work at getting the show on track a little after I took some absences. So, yeah, I don't know. Thank you, everybody, for listening. I really appreciate it. And I will talk to you next week. Bye.